Welcome. This is the final installment of our draft series. I'm calling it that now. If you don't know us by now, then you probably
have been living under a rock, and you should feel very ashamed of yourself.
We got like what, 1 million followers already, guys?
I think we're over 1 million.
I actually just quit my job to be a full-time fantasy forecaster, so
I mean, my Twitter handle's blowing up now because of this.
I don't even know what a tweet is.
yeah. Ian Rappaport just called me earlier. We talked about 20 minutes. I told him, listen, I don't have your fantasy advice. Don't call me again.
But anyways, this is our third installment of the draft series. It's also going to be our final one. Fourth, sorry. This is my third installment.
Cut.
This is my third installment.
You're right on
My
that
third
one. Technically, he's right.
No one watched the quarterback one, right?
It's our highest viewed one.
By far.
I think it's by 40.
Today we will be just answering random questions. We're going to talk about some tight ends and some defenses. And maybe kickers.
And maybe punter?
Are we going to talk about
No.
No, we're not talking about punters. So I think it's actually good to get right into it with what tight end, other than top tight ends like Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce.
Although none of us are going to say it, I would say by everywhere. Anyway.
Well, but which tight end would you think would be a good pickup for your team in case you don't get a tight end early?
Well, I mean, I would argue the ones that we got right here are the ones you probably end up getting the earliest for tight end, unless you get Gronkowski, who once again hasn't finished a season in what? It's been about 3 seasons at least.
No, but let's be honest.
He's still the number one.
Right. It's not even. It's not
And
even
Kelsey's probably number 2 by far still at this point. Although,
But the gap.
I think you'll talk about, so I won't bring up the other. You didn't. Although Delaney Walker, I'd still argue is pretty high up there.
Yeah, but
I've dropped him 3 years in a row now.
But the gap between Kelce and Gronk's not even close.
No. But on top of that, so I think I talked about him on last week, I think for his preseason game in the preseason series. Trey Burton of the Bears, he's looked pretty good so far this preseason. I've liked Trey Burton since he was an Eagle, although obviously I believe he started his backup to Brent Selleck, and then it was Zach Ertz, and you're not going to pass either of those just because Brent Selleck was still at the tail end of his good tight end run. Trey Burton never really stood a chance there to shine, but he is a very solid one. I think he's going to be a star for Chicago out there in tight end. I think he's going to be there for a long time. And please, no one put this video back up on any of my Facebook or anything once he's out of the league after 1 year. Trey Burton.
Well, and I think not a bad one either because Shaheen, they're not sure when he'll get back.
They said he was healthy. He wasn't healthy, but it's by week 1.
I mean, that really takes the Bears' tight ends down by losing a guy they drafted in the second round just last year.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
you know, I mean, Burton was a huge sign for us this year.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely gives Trubisky another option to throw to, and like I said, he has had success when he had to fill in for Zach Ertz when he was injured. So I'm very high on Trey Burton. My sleeper is Mike Gesicki for the Miami Dolphins. Let's be honest, no Miami wide receiver has even looked relatively good this offseason. So to me, you have Ryan Tannehill coming off of an injury. You don't really know what to expect. So for me, the tight end is going to be your biggest safety valve, your blanket. They drafted Mike Gesicki extremely high in the draft. You know, he's someone that had a very good career at Penn State. He's quick. He's a big target. So for me, that's someone that I'm definitely kind of keeping my eye on. Do I think he's going to be like a top 10 fantasy stud in terms of tight end? There's potential.
Yes, eventually.
But to me, this year, his rookie year, I look for him to be in the middle of the pack. Like someone that you can rely on to probably get you a decent amount of fantasy points consistently. Will he have his games where he probably goes off for like 100 yards and 2 touchdowns? Yeah, he may have that. But for the most part, I kind of see him as like a 5-catch, 60, 70 yards kind of guy.
Fair enough. No, I agree, although I'm a Penn State fan, so I don't know if it's going to come well for me, per se. But yes, I think he has a lot of talent, and he'll go for it. Not really any arguments here. Not really any arguments.
The tight end that I think you should look at is the Cleveland Browns tight end David Njoku. He's coming into his second year, and he's actually looked real good this preseason. He's been having a good rapport with both Tyrod Taylor and Baker Mayfield, which is going to be one of the starters there, no doubt about it.
And look what Tyrod Taylor did with Charles Clay.
Yeah, that too. And I just, not to mention he's a red zone presence. So I mean he's a big guy, and it's just I don't think he got enough of a chance last year. I'm pretty sure he's behind. Was it Watson in Cleveland?
No, I don't think it was Watson. I can't even remember who
I can't
was.
remember.
I'm pretty sure he ended up the number one for most of the year, but I think he got injured at one point in the year, if I remember right.
But inconsistent quarterback play definitely didn't do him any favors last year.
Yeah, no.
either, you know.
And inconsistent is a very, very positive version of what actually happened.
And that's the thing. You're going to have guys who stretch for someone like Kyle Rudolph after the top ones go, or maybe even someone who I'm about to bring up. So that's why I'm not saying his name just yet. There's going to be guys that, like Benjamin Watson, for instance. He's also another one that I actually saw draft high, and I mean, there's stretches for tight ends, and some of these guys are just falling, and
right.
That's when you jump in and scoop them. I mean,
And I think that's one of those that it's the made name. So Ben Watson, he's put up good seasons for the past 10 years. Everyone's won that every year.
and that's the thing.
Zach Njoku.
We got three guys that the only ones really known of is Trey Burton, only because
to a point even.
Well, but everyone knows the Philly special.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what he's being known for right now, and I hope he gets out of that and does a really good job for Chicago, obviously.
Right.
Yep. So that leads us to the obvious other question then. So these are ones that we're seeing go a little bit lower or maybe not at all. Now the ones that are definitely getting drafted at some point early on that we're saying, hey, maybe not lean on these guys fully. So I'll ask the question, have it come around me. So who is your buyer beware?
I'm just going to kick it off with the biggest name, I think, outside of Gronkowski, Travis Kelce, and that's Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham's probably being drafted as a top 5 tight end very easily because he is on the Packers offense. He has Aaron Rodgers throwing the football. But let's not forget, Russell Wilson is not a bad quarterback. Now, granted, Jimmy Graham wasn't exactly a good fit for what Seattle does. But at the same time, the Packers never really used their tight ends that much.
That's Martellus Bennett.
Yeah, I was going to say, you saw last year. That was...
Now, don't get me wrong. When Jimmy Graham is healthy, when Jimmy Graham is on his A game, there is very few tight ends that can do what he can. He's a big target. So there is a lot of upside for Jimmy Graham, but at the same time, I think we have to temper expectations. To draft him like the 3rd tight end overall, I think is a much stretch. I think if you could get him, maybe in like the 10th or so, like tight end.
And I'm going to tell you now, you're probably not getting him.
He's rough. I wouldn't be shocked.
I think he's like top 5, top 6.
Yeah.
You're not getting him that late, but if he does, I agree. That's a guy that you could steal late, but
I think he's this season for Jimmy Graham is going to be very touchdown dependent. Like, I don't see him going out putting up 100 yards receiving. I don't see him going out putting up like a 10-catch game. I really think he's going to be along the stat lines of like 4 catches, 20 yards, and a touchdown.
And another thing to note also, the Packers' offense is not going to be the same type of offense you're used to. This is a team that's coming in with Jamal Williams he's looking good. He's going to be the clear-cut number 1 guy. But, I mean, besides Devontae Adams, you got Randall Cobb as the number 2 guy who...
He hasn't done anything for years, it seems.
He can't... And not even that, after that, they got Allison behind him, Geronimo Allison. And
who has that 70-yard catch every, 10 games?
Yeah, I mean, this is an offense that... I mean, they're going to have to rely on Graham. But... I don't know. I'm not saying don't draft Aaron Rodgers or don't draft Devontae Adams. Obviously, those are 2 top guys you should look at. But yeah, I agree with the beware of the Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, because at the same time too, he does have a lot of injury concern.
Mm-hmm. The last couple of years.
Yeah, look at his days in Seattle. Look at his days with the Saints. I mean, there's a reason why the Saints got rid of him because of the injury concerns. So for me, like I said, if I could get him late as a steal, I would absolutely do it. But for me to take him extremely high in the draft, to take him as the number 3rd tight end taken,
when you probably have good running backs and wide receivers still out there that you can grab.
That you could rely on, yeah, absolutely.
by still getting a decent tight end, like we've already discussed later on. I agree.
Well, I'm actually going to talk about the guy who I've actually been mainly seen as number 3 tight end behind Travis Kelce. And I know I'm going to get a lot of flack if Eagle fans watch it, but Zach Ertz is my buyer beware. I don't even know how Zach Ertz became the number 3 tight end. I mean,
The Super Bowl champs. He's a player there.
He gets you some of those big games, and sometimes he's just not really there. And and he's being drafted like the number 3 tight end. And the big concern that I'm going to get at is something that if you watched our preseason week 3 video, Carson Wentz probably is not going to play week 1, and it's kind of more of a question of when he's going to come back. And because of that, you're relying on Nick Foles, who, as we've talked about, which Nick Foles are you getting? Are you getting his Super Bowl run Nick Foles, or are you going to be getting the Nick Foles that went to the Rams?
Yeah, and I'll throw something out there for Zach Ertz. The one upside for that is when Nick Foles is in the game, Zach Ertz is the severe security blanket there. So with Nick Foles in the game, he could get a lot of check down catches. So if you're PPR, I still want to probably say number 3 at this point, maybe later in the season. But if you're in PPR, he might be worth it a little earlier, but not that high. Not that high. Still go for receivers and running backs at that point.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Ertz is always Zach Ertz. The other thing to keep in mind is there's a plethora of options in that passing attack for Philly. Yeah, Nelson Aguilar kind of came on last year.
Surprisingly, they're all drafted low.
So my buyer beware is Cameron Brate. I mean, he's not a bad tight end. I want to put him at number 3. I don't know how high he's getting drafted. I haven't really looked at that. He's iffy. Obviously, they drafted O.J. Howard really high last year, and people did expect him to become huge, but behind Cameron Brate, I think Brate just got a huge contract last year too.
Right.
No one fully expected O.J. Howard to play, but when he did later in the season, O.J. Howard actually looked really good. Not that anyone's shocked, but looked really good. So I actually expect O.J. Howard at some point this year to become the number 1 guy there. I expect a lot of dual tight end sets there. But Cameron Brate, you're probably going to see his targets go down pretty quickly as the year goes. The best chance for him to be a consistent player is maybe get traded to a team that needs a tight end pretty badly. And if that happens, then disregard everything I'm saying right here because he's very talented. But with O.J. Howard drafted that high and looking that good in certain games later in the season, it's only a matter of time before he takes over that starting position.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, too, is you do have Mike Evans.
Yep.
You still have Deshaun Jackson. So, the targets aren't just going to be there, and it's going to be a lot of 2 tight end sets. You're going to see a lot of, things. But to me, O.J. Howard is a superior athlete.
Yeah.
Cameron Brate's extremely reliable, don't get me wrong. But to me, I just think for what that offense is doing, why they brought Howard in, you don't draft someone that high just to have him sit for 3 years.
And plus, you add on that also, Ryan Fitzpatrick is starting for the first 4 weeks of the season. And those are going to be the make or break weeks for Cameron Brate. So he's got to keep the starting job. He's got to catch balls from, not that Fitzpatrick's terrible, but catch balls from Ryan Fitzpatrick in hopes that he has a good run.
You took my words.
I figured that's what you were going. I was like, I got to beat some Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I was going to tell them that, remember, Winston is suspended.
Which is probably why Brate's fallen on the draft a little bit.
Yeah, O.J. Howard is actually getting drafted before Brate in most leagues.
Yeah,
so.
As should be.
Right.
Although I'd still take them both decently low down.
All right, so now we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about fantasy defenses. We're just going to make this real quick. There's not much you can really say about defenses. You have your obvious top 2 in Jacksonville and Minnesota. So we're just going to say, give a surprise defense that you guys feel that you can have confidence drafting and rostering and playing every week.
Now, take this with a grain of salt because I am a Bears fan. But my sleeper defense is actually the Bears. Now, the reason I picked them is last year they actually looked great in the secondary, and with Roquan Smith getting signed to his rookie contract now, we actually got a nice big linebacker in the middle. Maybe he could become the next Brian Urlacher there. The Bears have been known for their linebackers, and hopefully that continues with that. But just adding on to that, the Bears' defense actually was pretty solid most times. There was times where they got beat up badly, but in all honesty, a lot of these defenses have that as well. You're looking for a team that basically could help you out in most situations, maybe get you that pick six, maybe get you a fumble. And the Bears are a team that just is, they're young, but the best thing about young players is that if they play long together, they start coming together as a team much better. And I think that's going to happen this year with Chicago's defense.
So basically, you're saying when the weeks that they don't face Alvin Kamara, they're good.
Yes.
I think that's what we're all saying.
I mean, to be fair, if the Bears are playing an offense that could put up points, you don't want them because I mean,
you don't want any offense.
but at the same time, they are going up against like.
That's what scares me. Look at their division.
Yeah, they do have a division that's pretty solid.
They got some of the best quarterbacks in the league in our
Right.
division.
So to me, I like the Bears defense. I like what they're doing on defense. I find it hard to trust them just because 6 out of their games are going to be against Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, or Kirk Cousins. I mean,
how could you miss Kirk Cousins?
You know, like you look at those teams and they're going to air out the football because you know Matt Stafford's just going to throw for 5,000 yards because that's all they're going to do.
But all you really need is just that. Like I mean, that they're also not going to be scoring probably like 40 points on them a game.
Only if they play the Browns.
But good callback.
that is a very. But the thing is all you really need for a defense normally is just turnovers, sacks, and I think you're going to get that. Am I saying that the Bears are going to shut down those offensive? No, I mean obviously we're not. We might stop Cousins. It depends on how Cousins does with the Vikings. Rodgers always has our number, but we also kind of slow Rodgers down from what he normally does. And Matt Stafford, it depends on what Stafford you get, because we've shut down Stafford before too.
Right. Well, either way, I'm going to go into that. Personally, for me, I'm at assign a new defense a week for the most part. Look who has the matchups that's on your free agent and sign them. Rarely will I go for a defense the whole year. So I'm prefacing that. Wow, that was awful. With that because the defense I'm saying is the Browns defense. Now, once they were within the top 10 last year in fantasy points. Surprisingly, for a team that doesn't win any games, is a top 10 defense. That something's with the coaching there. But like I said, if I'm have to talk about a defense that I would take, if you're going for a full year defense or something like that, and you're drafting one, personally, I would say, hey, you get the Browns probably pretty late. They've got a young defense there. Myles Garrett's a beast, getting through for sacks. I mean, you could do worse. So my argument would be the Browns defense. But overall, I would say defenses are more something that you shouldn't necessarily look to draft high. You want to play by the matchups.
Surprisingly, Cleveland does really good in their division as well.
Yeah, they do. They shut down Steelers twice last year. They lost both of them.
I mean, granted, the Bengals the last couple of years haven't been solid, but yeah, like the Steelers who have Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and Ben Roethlisberger, they've kind of like
kept their own.
Yeah, they kind of.
Although to be fair, I would like to say that the second time they played the Steelers last year was against backups.
Oh, yeah. Right. I mean, not just saying in general.
But overall, in general, yeah, because they almost beat them week 1. Everyone thought that they had that shot week 1 last year against the Steelers. And
yeah, he said the Browns do have a young offense. I mean, with Myles Garrett, they're going to get after the quarterback. I mean, hell, he had 2 sacks in the preseason game. He had a safety. Mm-hmm. Now, the concern I do have is their rookie cornerback got hurt. I don't know the status of him as far as how his health is.
They didn't say it was too serious yet, but once again, there hasn't been, with all the talk of Marquise Lee this week, there hasn't been too much on
right. So, I mean, there are some concerns there with their cornerbacks, safety, play. But to me, I think they're a young defense. I think there's something you can plug and play if the matchup is good, and do from there. The defense that I want to talk about is the Arizona Cardinals. If you watched our last video, you knew we were very high on them with 8 turnovers. They are leading the league in turnovers in preseason. Again, it's preseason, take it with a grain of salt. But that speaks volumes for a defense that a lot of people thought would be on the steady decline. Patrick Peterson's a year older, but so far this preseason, he has absolutely balled out. He's shutting down players. He's the old Patrick Peterson that a lot of people have forgotten about when you start talking about your Jalen Ramseys, Darius Slay, all these different guys, Xavier Rhodes. people are forgetting about Patrick Pearson being one of the premier shutdown corners.
We don't have a premier shutdown corner. I'm not saying we have a premier shutdown corner.
But so you look at that. They have Chandler Jones, who is a dynamic pass rusher who can get after the quarterback. They did lose to Honey Badger, which a lot of people thought was going to really kind of hurt their secondary. But the guys that they have in there now have stepped up. They've played really well. Am I saying you want to play them every week? No.
I don't think any of us are saying we want to play
Yeah.
these every week.
Defenses are a tricky subject on that.
Right, unless you have
yeah,
the
if you have one of
Jaguars.
the top defenses, then you keep them.
Even then, I would still get iffy playing them. Like we said, Saints. Even then, even if you have the Vikings or Jaguars D's, I'd probably still play them, but I'd be a little leery playing them against the top
Well, you
offense.
don't also want to give them up, though.
Yeah, you would put them on your
No, I
bench or
mean,
something.
the Bears, the Browns, and the Cardinals are teams that you can afford to drop.
Right, because most
Like-
people aren't going to be running out the door just to get the same.
Yeah, these
Well,
are,
at least early in the season, if they break out,
these
then
are,
you might see
These
that.
are basically the plug and plays.
Right.
Yep. So go ahead.
Oh, I'm
We'll
going
go
to
through the questions.
one.
Well, yeah, we're kind of gonna go around in this circle.
Well, then I guess I'm this question. I personally don't like this question because I have an issue with it, but we'll get to that.
Uh-oh.
The question is it worth drafting a kicker before the final round?
No. Most of the time, you're going to cut the kicker within the first 2 weeks anyway. You're going to probably cut the kicker on their bye week and not really care about it at that point. So, unless you're in some weird draft where you have to draft every spot on your actual roster, then draft your bench, no. That's most I'll say. Just no.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. If there was like a premier kicker that is just extremely dominant, he's hitting
Never
80-yard
misses.
field goals, he's like 50 for 50, then yeah, you would
Yeah, of course.
absolutely
Oh, yeah,
draft
first
him,
round.
extremely high. But there's no kicker in the league that's doing all these crazy
50 for
things.
50 a game? Heck yeah, you're signing him.
Yeah, you're going to sign that person.
First round.
I'm going to take him over Le'Veon Bell because Le'Veon Bell's more focused on his rap career. But besides that, to me, you can take a kicker if you want, but to me, they're going to be a plug and play every week. There's no kicker out there that's going to be like head and shoulders above all the other kickers. So for me, I'm right
So
there.
why do you hate the question?
My personal thing is I don't think it's bad to draft a kicker. I'm not saying draft him in the 3rd round or the 10th round. But it's not bad to get a nice kicker for your first couple weeks, which the first bye week starts in week 4. So it's nice to have a kicker, in all honesty, that you could rely on for a couple weeks before you have to drop, because otherwise, if you get one that you're just planning on dropping, then you're going to be gambling a lot of times with it. Now, am I saying that you should, like I said, definitely draft one in the 10th round because you need Steven Gostkowski? No, but I understand why people do draft them early, because there's some guys that are far and away better kickers than some of the league bottom. And
Steven Gostkowski now, okay. So, we'll go into our next question. I would just like to point out then, with that answer that Brendan gave, he must have really loved when the Bucks traded up for a kicker 2 years ago in the NFL draft. Anyway, so our next question, to the 2nd round, by the way.
Roberto Aguayo was a former Bear.
And he's still on a team this preseason. I don't
I don't
remember
know
who
where
though.
he's at.
I've lost track of him. So, okay, we're giving it to Bryn. He wanted us to ask this. He pushed it last week at the end of the video. If you watched it, you saw at the end of the running back video. What punter you got? Try to stay as serious as possible.
If your fantasy league has a punter, and yes, I am in a fantasy league that has punters,
Ugh.
and there's nothing more emasculating and humiliating than having a 5-point lead going into Monday night, and all they have left is a punter, and you lose. It is the most disgusting feeling in the world, and it makes you want to just quit fantasy football altogether. But if I have to take a punter,
Punter sleepers.
that's right. This is the sleeper punter you want, because we have ripped this offense apart. So there's only one person you can take on this team offensively, and that is John Ryan of the Buffalo Bills. He's going to be punting probably 50 times a game, because the offense is going to be going 4 and out, 4 and out, 4 and out, 4 and out.
If they're going 4 and out, he's not punting much.
But still, John Ryan is the guy I'm taking because the Bills' offense is terrible. We've made fun of them constantly throughout these films. So, Bills fans, be happy. I will draft your punter, John Ryan, happily in the last round.
For the record, he just took a shot at your offense again. Anyway, Frank, who would you
All
take?
right. Well, I'm gonna try and do my all-see. I'm going to take Cameron Johnston of the Philadelphia Eagles because he's Australian. The Eagles also traded up to grab him, and in the first preseason game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he kicked an 81-yard dinger. An 81-yard dinger.
That's good. I will go into mine now to get away from that awkwardness. I'm going to take Johnny Hecker just because it works for a team name. It's not the one I'm going to choose here, but it works for a team name. You can make a lot of fun things out of Heck. And plus, I think he was the best punter in the league last year. It was pretty close if he wasn't. I didn't follow punters. I don't know. I just know I heard Johnny Hecker's name a lot. So, hey, I like you. Johnny Hecker.
All right, so moving right along here, our next question is, what fantasy guy are you going to draft just so you can associate him with your team name?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I'm going to draft them, but I just think Cardiac Mac Attack is such a fun rhyming name. So I would grab Derek Carr and Marlon Mack.
Fair enough. See, I'm going with the easy one just because I'm terrible at this kind of thing. But I'm drafting Andrew Luck and naming my team Lucky to win a game.
Fair enough. I'm going to do a Ram stack of Todd Gurley
He's in a pretty low.
and Cooper Kupp, and my team name is going to be 2 Gurleys, 1 Cup.
Boo this man when you're watching this video.
Please like and subscribe.
I can't bring go with it.
All right. Well, I think our next question strays away from
What we've just been asking.
crap jokes.
Oh, but my guy's nickname has poop in it.
Never goes. So now we come to the player that we forgot to mention. Why did we forget to mention them? I don't know. But you know, they're just forgotten. But not now.
That's right.
So I am going to go with the Steelers' second wide receiver who had a good
Thought you were
season
about to
last
say
year.
that rookie James Conner.
That rookie, not the rookie. No, I'm talking about Poo Poo Smith. See? Hey! Juju Smith-Schuster. You can name a name off of that too. Anyway, I would take him later in the draft, although I think he might get knocked out in the Bengals game later this year, unfortunately for him. Good cause. It's a good cause. I mean, he really celebrated injuring. He celebrated injuring the guy, and people celebrated
To
him.
be fair, if you do draft Juju Smith-Schuster, Le'Veon Bell, and Antonio Brown, you could be the Juju Bees.
But anyway, he put up a good season last year. He's number 2 to Antonio Brown, so Brown's taking a lot of that double coverage. He's going to get open again this year, so he's worth it late in the season. Or late in the draft. I don't know why I said season. Late in the draft.
Yeah, and the guy I'm going to talk about, kind of keeping with the tight end theme. This guy is one of the more consistent tight ends that no one gives him any real love. That's Delaney Walker for the Tennessee Titans. Every year, this guy always puts up good fantasy numbers. I always draft him, then trade him to
me. I always trade for him, and it always works out for me.
I like Delaney Walker. I mean, he's probably the best receiving target that they have down in Tennessee.
That's Corey
He's a big
Davis steps
body.
up.
Yeah, but for the most, as of right now, from what we've seen,
Yeah.
Delaney Walker is the guy down there. He's always healthy. He's consistent. He's a good red zone threat. So for me, Delaney Walker is someone that we haven't really talked about, but definitely keep an eye on.
Although, to be fair, he was injured the second half of the year last year.
Well, hopefully we don't go back in time to one of the videos we did because I said I don't trust anyone from this team. I know. I have a feeling that Danielle's going to find a way. She's going to find a way to bring that clip back up.
Well,
But-
I mean, to be fair, and I'll let you go back a second. This guy over here and me straight up said we'll never draft a Bills player, and if we do, we'll quit fantasy football. And we just said draft a Bills player. So
So we're going back around all over the place because I know before I said that I don't like the Detroit Lions offense. However, I did forget about someone who I think actually is going to have a much prominent role than what he normally has in Theo Riddick. Theo Riddick, who I know I said earlier that I don't like anyone from the Lions offense, and here I am telling you to take someone from the Lions offense. So, I mean, I think he's going to be a much better option at running back than LeGarrette Blount.
Especially in PPR format.
PPR.
Well, and that's what I was going to bring up because
PPR.
I said that I'm not a huge fan of Stafford this year, but I know Stafford likes getting the ball out the backfield. And who's going to be there? Theo Riddick.
He's gonna be hopefully his number one target, but unfortunately last year the problem with Theo Riddick was they barely ever had him in because they were bombing the ball every play.
And they were down a lot too. And
Yeah.
normally when you're down a lot, you don't put your running backs to work.
Amen to that. So we'll go into the next one. We got a couple more questions here, and this one is 2-1. So the question here is, so somebody that you talked about in one of the previous 3, or for Bryn 2, previous videos, who is someone that you have changed your thoughts on, be it by injury, be it by just you went away from here, looked at their stats, and were like, wow, I was an idiot for bringing that person up.
So
Could be multiple reasons.
We can't do it for this video? Like,
Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, I talked about Trey Burton earlier today. No, but you can technically. But we'll kick it off. It's basically, who did you talk about earlier that you changed your mind on for one way or another, and then who would you put in that spot?
Yeah, I'm going to lead off here. My biggest player that I talked about earlier heavily was Marquise Lee. Obviously, we now know the news that he has done for the year. To kind of fill in that spot, I'm going to say draft Antonio Brown because it seems like the logical move. Now,
Wow, what good advice!
I'm kidding.
I mean, I normally would draft Marquise Lee first.
You saved my whole draft.
I'm kidding. The player I would recommend if you were going to draft Marquise Lee because you wanted a number 1 wide receiver, I think you're going to have to look at keeping with the Jaguars, Dante Moncrief. He is our new number 1 receiver as of right now. I mean, that could obviously change depending on who steps up. But heading into the draft, we don't really know a whole lot of this Jaguars passing attack. But all we do know right now that number 1 on the depth chart is Dante Moncrief. So for me, if you had plans to take Marquise Lee,
Which honestly, most of you probably didn't.
you guys hate the Jaguars, but you know.
I never said I hate the Jaguars. I'm just saying to say that no one out there is like, I'm going to draft Marquise Lee here in the draft
But
this
at the
week.
same time, if you're building your team on number 1 wideouts because they are the number 1 wideout, you know, you would take Marquise Lee on a flyer. I'm just saying, you're going to plug
10 to
in.
15, round 10 to 15, maybe a little later than that.
But you're going to plug in Dante Moncrief now. So as far as I'm concerned, I feel bad for Marquise Lee. He just got that big contract, which goes with my statement, never draft someone that just got paid. And now look what happened. So keep that in mind, fantasy players, when you're doing your draft. If you're drafting someone that just got a big contract, Odell Beckham, be wary.
So you regret Odell Beckham by any chance?
You remember, speaking of number 1 receivers, do you remember that time a while back when I really argued with that one about the 1 receiver?
What was his name?
Devontae Barker?
Yeah, Devontae Barker.
Devontae Barker?
Oh.
So I remember a while back, it seemed like it was just yesterday, where I was adamant that Devontae Parker should be drafted and that he's underrated and all that.
It was a pretty big argument, actually.
It was. It actually lasted most of the video. I'm sorry. I should have looked into it more. It was my first video, and I kind of got myself rushed. And I stupidly threw up a guy that probably won't even be number 2 guy by the end of the year.
That's
so don't draft Devontae Parker. Let him sit. Let someone else get him. However, one guy that we have touched upon before that I think you should draft in his place because they're kind of going to the same spot is Robert Woods. He did great last year. Jared Goff's only going to get better. He is still one of the top 2 receivers. I know we talked earlier about Brandon Cooks. However, Robert Woods still is that number 2 guy in LA. And I just think that why go number 1 when you can go number 2? And that's
Nice. Our poo jokes continue as we go. So then I guess I'll go with mine. So last week on the running back videos, I kind of got put on the spot. Somebody may have stole the Joe Mixon that I was going to talk about. So I kind of got put on the spot and completely forgot who I was going to talk about and started talking about Chris Thompson. Nothing against Chris Thompson. If he can get healthy, he's going to be a good PPR back. But the big question there is if he gets healthy. At this point, he's on that list of not getting cleared yet. And who knows if he's going to play week 1, who knows if he's going to play early this season. So I would not draft Thompson too high. But then again, it seems like every time a Redskins running back. Anyway, it seems like every time a Redskin running back gets any talk at all, they either get injured or something happens to him. So, hey, Adrian Peterson.
Draft Capri Bibbs.
So yeah, he's our last one there. If you're feeling forced to draft a Redskins running back at this point, take Adrian Peterson in like the 27th round. But in all honesty, the person I would take early on that's probably going to get you that receiving back and some rushing yards is a little bit of the goal lines might be taken away from Frank Gore though. Would be Kenyon Drake. I know we've talked about him a little bit before on here. He basically took Jay Ajayi's job away late last year because he got traded, and then he took over a starting job. He had some monster games during last season. Basically won me my only 3 wins last year, fantasy forecasters. And so Kenyon Drake looks to be started down there. He's a solid running back. Even Frank Gore said he could see why they trade Jay Ajayi. So
can I just say it is very refreshing to hear you actually say his name right. Well, Eagles fans be proud of this moment in time right now. He said Jay Ajayi, not JJE. So let's give him a round of applause. Let's give him
Eagles lost 5-0
so
to the Browns.
To wrap things up here, we're going to talk about Mr. Irrelevant because we figure that's the best way to wrap up this series. So with the final pick in your fantasy draft, who are you going to take?
Obviously, I'd say a kicker.
And that answers all of our questions.
I was going to make another joke by saying Lamar Jackson, even though I don't think he'll get on the field this year. But I actually want to go serious with this. A guy that's not getting drafted that should be is Mike Williams. You talked about him earlier. It's kind of nice that I'm wrapping this up that I'm finished with Mike Williams here, but he's looked good. And he's going to be the number 3 guy, possibly take over for
Travis.
Travis. Well, yeah. I mean,
Travis Benjamin still has a deep threat occasionally,
the
but
thing is, they drafted him in the first
round. He just couldn't stay on the field healthy last
and
year.
that was his biggest knock at Clemson. He had some injury concerns, but when he played for Clemson,
amazing.
He was an absolute monster. So I agree wholeheartedly. He should be drafted.
And he's not. I actually dropped Alan Hearns because I, for some reason, drafted Hearns and picked him up on the waiver wire because he was not drafted. So Mike Williams is not getting drafted. I think he should. Mr. Irrelevant.
Good point. So, and I like that. I think we all talked about Mike Williams last time. My Mr. Irrelevant is clearly I'm picking Todd Gurley with that last pick. Oh wait, we're being serious. Okay, so I got 2 technically here that I could take. One is a starter who's technically you could probably get still at the end of the draft in Peyton Barber. It's a starting running back for the Tampa Bay Bucks. He's going to be on the market.
And fun fact, I think he is getting drafted at times, but I mean,
it's 50.
And also, I think the rookie guys getting drafted high too.
Yeah, so he might not be there, but that's why I went with my other one, Royce Freeman, not starter early on in the season.
Not going to be there.
No.
He's not really.
He has looked really good.
He has, but he's not the starter, so it shocks me that so many people are taking him.
Freeman's actually being taken as the number 1 Bronco running back. Booker's actually getting drafted lower.
Yeah, but that shocks me because Booker's going into the season as starter.
Yeah,
so,
but the
so
way
I'm still-
Freeman's looked,
Yeah, but that's never done anything before. Like, you're not seeing Chubb go early on in the draft just
Chubb
because
is
he's
not.
looked. Exactly, because he's looked good in preseason too. He's a rookie. He has every chance to start that Royce Freeman does.
Yeah.
And the Broncos are high on Devontae Booker. Oh yeah, they are, because he was supposed to be the next big thing there.
Well,
when they
I'm
drafted
just
him.
telling
I know he's just saying it. No, I know what you're saying, but
Yeah,
but Devontae Booker, I don't understand that because Devontae Booker's been getting talked up for the last 2
Well, there you
years
go. That
and
could actually
has
be
showed
your
up there.
answer.
So there you go, Devontae Booker. If Devontae Booker's not getting drafted until late, I take him. I was only going to say Royce Freeman to keep him for the year and see if Devontae Booker gets injured, handcuffed. But
And my last pick, Mr. Irrelevant for me, is Pharaoh Cooper. Why? Because I love the name Pharaoh.
I'm with that.
Thank you guys for watching. Starting week 1 of the regular season, we're going to kind of
Next week.
do like a breakdown each week, kind of give you our fantasy starts and sits of the week, just to kind of lead into the season.
The waiver pickup.
So, and waiver wire pickups. So thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe our videos. We'll keep these things rolling. Thank you guys very much. We are the Fantasy Forecasters. We predict it as good as the weatherman.